Good luck.
Merhaba arkadaşlar, hepiniz IEFT Talks webinarlarına hoş geldiniz. Bugün Japonya'da eğitim planı yapmak isteyenler için gerekli bütün bilgileri Tokyo University of Foreign Studies'den Ri ve Nobuo'dan dinliyor olacağız. Lütfen sorularınızı sağ alt köşede Questions bölümünden yönlendirmeyi unutmayın. Yes, Ri, the stage is yours now.
Thank you very much. First of all, we would like to thank the group for giving us this opportunity. Okay. We are Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. So let me start sharing my screen now. Okay. Okay, I hope you can see the screen now. And let me start now, okay? So as I mentioned, we are Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. Your first step to explore the world starts here. Today, we will mainly go over our undergraduate program. But before that, let me briefly go over our university. Tokyo University of Foreign Studies is located in Tokyo, the capital of Japan, about 30 minutes of a train ride from downtown Tokyo, in a very quiet residential area where you can actually experience the 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. As the university specializes in foreign studies, the number of languages taught at this university reaches 81. Among the 81 are so-called 28 major languages, which the Japanese students of this university study as their major. And as you can see here, Turkish is one of those 28 major languages, which means that once you come to this university, you will be able to meet with Japanese students who are studying Turkish, about Turkey, and your cultures. Okay. Oops, sorry. We are relatively small in size, having 3 undergraduate programs: School of Language and Culture Studies, School of International and Area Studies, and School of Japan Studies. This School of Japan Studies is the undergraduate program that is offered in both English and Japanese. English and Japanese are the common languages of this undergraduate program. Professor Haruna of the School of Japan Studies is here today to explain more in details about this undergraduate program. But he will probably emphasize the point that you don't need any Japanese proficiency when you first apply to this program. You will be receiving an intensive Japanese lessons once you enter this program. Before we go into the details of the School of Japan Studies, let me briefly go over the expenses necessary for you to study in Japan at this university. As a national university, we are relatively small, the academic fees are relatively low compared with the private universities in Japan. As for the living expense, I mentioned before that our campus is located in the suburb of Tokyo, which means that there is a quiet and safe environment, and the rent is relatively low compared with downtown Tokyo. We do have a dormitory on campus, but since the number is limited, even if you are granted with a room, you will be asked to leave the dormitory in about 6 months and move into a private apartment. However, since the rent is relatively low in this area, the difference between the dormitory fee and the private apartment rent is not that big. As stated here, I put it into the US dollars this time, but the rent is about 50,000 yen. And this is about the average of a private apartment who is living by him or herself in a very area close to our campus. The food depends on the students themselves, but I would like to mention here some of the other expenses. As for the internet and phone, it is known that Japan is relatively expensive in terms of internet connections or mobile phones. But the students are kind of very good at finding a rather cheap contract for the internet and also for the mobile phones. And due to the pandemic, some of the classes are still held online, meaning that it is very important for a student to have a very stable internet. So including the internet and the mobile phones, the students are paying somewhere around 6,000 yen per month. As for this insurance and medical fees, Japan has a system called National Health Insurance. All the residents of Japan will be required to enter this national health insurance, and you are to pay the insurance fee of somewhere around 10,000 yen per year. With that, about 70% of the medical fees that you need to pay at the clinics will be covered by this insurance. So including the month insurance fee and the small medical fees, the students are paying somewhere around 2,500 yen per month. Well, transportation, as long as you live near the campus, you don't go out that much, you don't need this much. But the students usually go out during the weekends or on Friday nights to have some fun. But due to this pandemic, currently the students are rather being quiet and staying around the campus these days. Okay, let me just go over a little bit about the financial support then. Those students who come to the university as a privately funded student will be able to apply for these two financial supports. One is the tuition exemption. Once you are officially accepted to the university, you will be given with the information about how to apply for the tuition exemption. Upon applying and screening, partial exemption may be granted. Another financial support is the scholarships provided by private foundations in Japan. I need to note that many of the private foundations do require Japanese proficiency, meaning that you are requested to prepare your scholarship applications in Japanese and take the interviews in Japanese. Some of the private foundations do have some additional eligibility requirements, such as age, nationalities, and in many cases, high academic performance. Professor Haruna will be going into some of the details about the Japanese government scholarship opportunity for the School of Japan Studies. So those students who wish to study under the Japanese government scholarship will be able to apply for the School of Japan Studies and the scholarship at the same time. For those who come as a privately funded student, will be having the opportunity to apply for these financial supports. Lastly, from my side, I would like to explain briefly about the facilities of this university. I mentioned before that we do have the on-campus dormitory, but the number is limited, and at the time of application, the room is not guaranteed. But up until now, most of the students are able to get a room when they first come to Japan. But basically, the regular students of this university will be asked to leave the dormitory within 6 months, find a private apartment near the campus. But it seems that all the students are actually enjoying living in a private apartment to actually experience the Japanese life here in Japan. We also have a healthcare center to support the students, especially once they arrive here. They will experience the difference in the climate, difference in the food cultures, and so and so. For those who are seeking jobs opportunity after graduating from this university, we'll be using the so-called Global Career Center. Here we have a counselor who specializes in international students' job hunting, providing one-to-one counseling. The counselor will also check their resumes and prepare for the interviews. Let me lastly note that we do have a prayer space within the building that most of the classes are being held. So this is the presentation from my side, and let me now introduce Professor Nobuo Haruna of the School of Japan Studies. Okay. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Ishida-san. I am Nobuo Haruna from the School of Japan Studies at Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. So, well, if you are a high school student or if you are looking for a university to enter, then let me recommend the School of Japan Studies. This is an undergraduate program of the School of Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. So, I would like to start my slideshow. So, I believe you can see this, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Well, the School of Japan Studies. This is a pretty new school at Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. It was established in 2019. So I would like to first talk about the notable features of this university, then give you a sketchy image of how you would spend your 4 years in this school. And finally, I will talk about the admissions. Probably my talk will be about 20 minutes or so. Okay, so starting with the notable features. Well, as you can see from the name of this school, the School of Japan Studies is intended to train the students to become specialists in Japan studies. That means you are trained to be fluent in the language Japanese. You'll be able to read Japanese materials. You'll be able to do some research about the society, history, culture, and so on. That's a specialist in Japan studies. But as I wrote down in this slide, it's more than just a study of Japan. Well, we who established this school intended to train our students and our graduates to become active participants in a globalized and therefore diversified society. Well, I believe Turkey is already a pretty much diversified society. Japan is still not. Well, the percentage of foreign-born population is still around 2% of the entire population. So we believe that the Japanese society will become more and more internationalized, globalized, and diversified. So therefore, we want all of our students to be prepared to become active participants in such globalized societies. So with that in mind, we have some special features at the School of Japan Studies. Let me start with the first one. Well, the School of Japan Studies is not such a big school. Well, actually, as Ishida-san just told you, Tokyo University of Foreign Studies is not such a big university. For the School of Japan Studies, we accept 75 students each year. And among the 75, 45 students come from Japanese high schools. The rest, 30, comes from high schools abroad. And actually, in the third year, we have 10 more students entering the School of Japan Studies from the third year, from the third grade. And so by the time the students graduate the School of Japan Studies, there will be about the same number of Japanese students and international students. If you look at the origin of the international students, you can see that the students are coming not just from our neighboring countries like China, South Korea, and Taiwan. We have students from all over Southeast Asia, starting from Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand. We also have a number of students from Europe, like well, Finland, Germany, Slovakia, Norway, and so on. I can't name all of them, I have to say. Germany, Italy, and so on. And we also have students from Russia, the United States, and actually a pretty large number of students from Australia as well. So you can see that we have a very diverse environment in the School of Japan Studies. And as I just mentioned, the number of students are not so big. So all of the students who enter in the first grade will take courses together. They will learn and study together in the same classroom. And to make this diverse environment possible, we do not ask the international students to be proficient, to have proficiency in the Japanese language. That means we have entrance exams in English. So therefore, you can enter the School of Japan Studies with no proficiency in the language and no knowledge about Japan. That is what we provide in our educational program. So let me move on to the second point. As I just mentioned, We do not ask the students to know much about Japan when they enter the School of Japan Studies. That's what we teach. From the first year on, we have courses ranging from social studies to linguistics. We offer a great variety of courses ranging from social studies to linguistics and to language teaching. Well, we divide all of the courses into 4 fields, and the 4 fields consists of social studies like politics, economy, society, and history. And the second one, culture and literature. The third, linguistics. And we also offer a number of courses related to teaching Japanese to non-Japanese speakers. Well, in the first 3 years, all of the students will take courses in all of these 4 fields. The reason is, as I just mentioned, we do not require the students to know much about Japan when they enter. So we want the students to gain a lot of knowledge about Japan, Japanese studies, and the language. And therefore, within these 3 years, I believe the students will be able to find their own interest. So even when you start with no knowledge about Japan, in the 3rd year, you're expected to select your own field. Like, I want to do research about Japanese history. To do that, to be able to make such choices, we offer this diverse variety of courses. And in the 4th year, well, as I just mentioned, you are supposed to pick up your own field and pick up your own theme to focus on. And in the 4th year, you specialize in this field and work on your own theme and complete a graduation thesis with supervision and guidance from your supervisor. The 3rd point. Well, I just mentioned that you're not required to know anything about Japan when you enter. You're also not required any proficiency in the language. You can come to Japan, come to our university with no proficiency in Japanese. Because, well, if you come to this university as a beginner of Japanese, we offer a great number of Japanese language lessons. If you come as a beginner, I have to say that throughout the first semester, all of your morning hours will be allocated to Japanese language lessons. I have to say that this is a very tough period. But if you go through this period and if you study hard Japanese for 2 years, then I can say that by the time you reach the 3rd year, your level of Japanese will reach a pretty high proficiency. That means that you'll not just be able to talk and communicate with your friends in Japanese, but you'll also be prepared to take courses taught in Japanese, which I mean that like courses on Japanese history taught in Japanese, courses on Japanese politics taught in Japanese as well. Well, the meaning of being prepared to take these courses is that you can listen to the lecturers speak in Japanese, you can read materials written in Japanese, and you'll be able to write your reports in Japanese as well. So therefore, you are prepared to take courses taught in Japanese. And this also means that you're prepared to search for jobs inside Japan after graduating from the university. So therefore, I would say that, well, even though the first 2 years will be very tough for you if you come as a Japanese beginner, I believe it is very meaningful to go through this tough period to acquire a high proficiency in the language. Okay. The 4th notable feature is that, as I just mentioned, we have a diverse environment. We have students coming from very different parts of the world, having very different cultural and linguistic backgrounds. So we want to make sure that all of these students will be friendly to each other, will be able to collaborate with each other, and to be able to communicate well with each other. So therefore, for the first 2 years in every semester, we have courses titled Collaboration Projects. The intention of having these courses is just to make the students collaborate with each other. We make the students form groups with students from Japanese high schools, with students from other South Asian countries, and with students from Europe and so on. So we make the students form globalized, diverse groups and make them work on a same project. Like in the slide, you can see right in front of you, we make the students create a video clip of the charms of the city of Fuchu, where the university is located. So by doing these kinds of activities together, the students will be able to communicate in both in English and in Japanese. Well, as I just mentioned, in the first few years, the common language is in English. So therefore, the students will be able to communicate in English. But if the students from abroad start learning Japanese, they will also be able to speak a little bit Japanese. So I believe you can use both English and Japanese, communicate with each other, collaborate with each other, and create a final product together. That's the meaning of these collaboration projects, and we have these kinds of courses every semester for the first 2 years. So these are the notable features of the educational program of the School of Japan Studies, and especially this is for the first 2 years. Well, I'll talk about the rest of the 2 years later on, but before that, I would like to say that if you complete the 4 years of education at the School of Japan Studies, upon graduation, you will be conferred a bachelor degree in languages and area studies. I won't go into the details of what this BA means, but if you have a bachelor degree, if you have a BA, that means that you are eligible to apply for graduate schools, not just in Japan, but in your home country, Turkey, or other countries in Europe or the United States as well. There are a lot of students graduating from our university and going to graduate school abroad. Okay, so let me talk about the rest of the years as well. Well, as I just mentioned, in the first 2 years, if you come to Japan as a Japanese beginner, a lot of your hours in the morning time will be allocated to Japanese language lessons. But in the afternoon, as I just mentioned, you will have the multicultural collaboration. So the so-called collaboration project courses. And above that, you will have a number of introductory courses in the first year. The introductory courses are, as the name indicates, it's about the introduction of the country, of the society, of the culture, and with some linguistics as well. All of the students will have to take all of these 5 introductory courses, and they are all taught in English. As I just mentioned, in the first 2 years, we can say that the common language is in English. So especially in the first year, all mandatory courses are taught in English. So you don't have to be afraid of these courses, even if you come to this country, come to our university as a Japanese beginner. In the second year, well, if you come as a Japanese beginner, you will still have a number of Japanese courses, Japanese language lessons in the morning hours. And in the afternoon, you'll still have these collaboration projects. But above that, now you will start taking courses called survey courses. Well, the introductory courses are introduction. Well, the survey courses are a little bit more specialized compared to the introductory courses. So you have courses like Japanese history and society, Japanese literature and culture, and so on. You choose a number of these courses, and you have to take more than 6 of these courses by the time you graduate. Well, about half of these courses are taught in English. So therefore, in the second year, you can just take the courses taught in English. So therefore, I keep on saying that for the first 2 years, we can say that our common language is English. In the third year, well, if you start as a Japanese beginner, I have to say that you still have a number of Japanese lessons. But that's just in the morning hours. For the rest of the time, you start taking a number of lecture courses, more specialized courses about Japan, the society, the culture, and the history. And well, if you look into the names of the titles of the lecture courses, you can see very specialized ones like Japanese politics and economy, Japanese diplomacy and international relations, or second language acquisition, classical Chinese, and so on. But on top of these lecture courses, you will also start taking some seminar courses. The difference between lectures and seminars is that, well, lectures are classes in which students receive knowledge, to put it very simply. In seminar courses, students will learn how to produce knowledge. So in lecture courses, students are consumers of knowledge. In seminar courses, students will start becoming producers of knowledge. Well, in the third year, in the first seminar courses, you can't produce knowledge at that time, but we guide the students to be able to be prepared to start producing knowledge. Or in other words, we call that research. So seminar courses are introductory courses to conduct research. The reason why we have such courses in the third year is because, as I mentioned, in the fourth year, every student will work on their graduation project and complete their graduation thesis. And I believe I mentioned that you do this with supervision and guidance and feedback from your supervisor. So by the time you reach the fourth year, you have to choose one supervisor and become a member of that supervisor's seminars. Well, this is on the right side is the list of the professors we have who teach graduation thesis seminars. So as you can see, my name is Nobuo Haruna. My name is in this Japanese society research field. I have a seminar of my own, which is specialized in social and political studies. So if you want to do something, if you want to write something about Japanese politics or society as your graduation thesis, then you choose me, become a member of my seminar, and then I will give you instructions, guidance, feedback, and other assistance so that you can complete your graduation thesis in the fourth year. Well, this is how your 4 years at the School of Japan Studies will go. The final part of my talk is about admissions. Well, if this School of Japan Studies sounds pretty interesting, if you are, if you feel like getting more information about the School of Japan Studies, well, in that case, well, first please look into the homepage of this university, and we'll search for the School of Japan Studies, and you'll get more information about the School of Japan Studies there. And plus, you'll get information about the admissions to the School of Japan Studies. As I just mentioned, for international students, we do not require the students to be fluent in Japanese when they come to our university. We have an entrance exam totally conducted in English, and that is called the entrance exam by high school recommendation. This is a 2-stage process, and the first stage is paper screening. The second stage is interview. Let me start with the paper screening. Well, you have to submit documents, which are high school grades, a recommendation letter written by your high school principal, and plus we require you to submit your English scores. We have language requirements about English. So you're supposed to have an English score above the so-called CEFR level B2. So to be more specific, if you take IELTS, then you're supposed to have more than 5.5 points of IELTS. If you take TOEFL IBT, you're supposed to have more than 72 points. Well, whichever exam you take, you just submit these English scores, and that will be for the paper screening, which will take place in early September. So as you can see in the table right in front of you, the next coming admission date will be April 1st. And to enter the School of Japan Studies on April 1st next year, the application period will start somewhere in early September this year. So I'll just recommend that you keep on looking into our homepage, or well, just contact us at the Global Admissions Office. I'll give you the information later. Well, to give you a rough image of the schedule, you submit your papers by early September, and if you pass the paper screening, then the second stage is an interview. The interview will be held online, so you don't have to come to Japan to take this exam. You can take the interview, you can attend the interview from your home country, Turkey, and this will take place in October. And if you pass these two exams, the paper screening and the interview, then you'll be admitted to the School of Japan Studies. The announcement of the admission will be in November. And well, if you receive the acceptance letter, then you can come to our school at April next year. Well, April sounds strange for you, may sound strange for you, but that's when all Japanese universities start. Our academic calendar in this country starts in April 1st. So therefore, you will be admitted to the school on April 1st, 2023. And well, as Ishida-san mentioned in her talk, well, this entrance exam by high school recommendation comes with the opportunity to receive the scholarship provided by the Ministry of Education. It's called the MEXT scholarship. Well, there is no separate screening process for the scholarship provided by the Ministry of Education. You just apply to the School of Japan Studies and check a box saying that you want the scholarship from the Ministry of Education. Then there's only one screening process. If you pass the exam of the School of Japan Studies, then up to 8, well, we will recommend the Ministry of Education up to 8 of the applicants so that they will be able to receive the scholarship. Well, we accept 10 students through this high school recommendation exam each year, and up to 8 students will receive the scholarship provided by the Ministry of Education. So therefore, I can say that you have a pretty high percentage of receiving this scholarship if you are admitted to the School of Japan Studies. Well, if you want to know more about the scholarship information, well, or if you want to get more concrete information about this screening process, please contact us at the Global Admissions Office. The email address is very simple, gao@tufs.ac.jp. I'll repeat this later on so you don't have to check it up now. Well, there's actually another entrance to the School of Japan Studies, and this is called the third year admission. Well, if you are already a university student and if you have completed more than 2 years of university education, then in that case, no matter what your specification is, no matter what your major is, you are eligible to apply for the School of Japan Studies to enter from the third year. And well, the nearest intake will be October this year. Well, if you look into the homepage of our university, then you can also see the admission information uploaded there. Well, the entrance exam will take place in May to June this year. And well, this is also a 2-stage process. The first stage is paper screening. You have to submit your university grades and well, and English scores and Japanese scores as well. Well, this as for the entrance exam for the first year grade students, I just mentioned that you're not required any proficiency in the Japanese language. But if you want to enter the School of Japan Studies from the third year, then that means, well, as I just explained, if you come to our school as a beginner of Japanese, in the first 2 years, you will receive a great number of Japanese lessons. So by the third year, we expect all the students to reach JLPT N2 level. So if you want to enter the School of Japan Studies from the third year, then you have to prove yourself that you are already at that level of Japanese proficiency. So therefore, you have to submit your JLPT scores and your English scores as well. And well, if you pass this first paper screening stage, then the second stage will be an interview. And this interview will also be held online, so you can take this interview from your home country. You don't have to come to Japan. The intake capacity is around 5 students, but that means around. We'll probably have more than 5 students. And so if you are interested in this, as I just mentioned, you should first look into the homepage if you want more information. If you want information about the high school recommendation exam as well, as I just mentioned, please contact us at the Global Admissions Office, which is gao@tufs.ac.jp. So this is all from me. Thank you very much. So
Okay.
I believe it's time for the Q&A.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Haruna. We have been receiving several questions. I have been answering some of them, but let us go over your questions together. First of all, about the English proficiency test, there are two questions here. Do you accept only IELTS? Is TOEFL or Duolingo also accepted? Let me answer this from my side. We do accept IELTS, TOEFL, but not Duolingo. Okay. As you can see from the link, I have just put some of the links on the chat box regarding all the examination and the programs that Professor Haruna was explaining about. If you can check our admission information, the details of the English proficiency test are stated here. Currently, we accept scores of TOEFL, IELTS, and for the IELTS, it has to be the academic module. Okay. Other than that, we accept TOEIC. In case of TOEIC, you have to submit both the listening and reading and also speaking and writing. Okay. We also accept scores from the Cambridge English, but I have to say that Duolingo is not accepted. Okay. Okay, Professor Haruna, maybe you can answer this. Do we have online lessons? Can I start my term before going to Japan?
Well, yes, there are online Japanese lessons. And Ishida-san, do you know where you can get the information of this?
Oh, okay. The one that we are currently having has to come from the universities. It's not open to the public. So if you are accepted to a certain universities in Japan, and if you want to learn Japanese before coming, our university have a so-called Japanese Language Center, which provides those lessons. But this, you cannot apply in person. I mean, what do you call it? Privately. You have to apply through the university that you will be entering. However, apart from this, we do have the so-called Tufts Open Academy.
Open Academy. Yes.
Yeah, Open Academy. There we do have the English lessons for those who are really interested in Japanese. But I'm sorry, Haruna says this question, I believe, is about the School of Japan Studies, whether the classes are held online and if the student can start the term before coming to Japan.
All right. I'm very sorry. I misunderstood the question. Well, as for now, we have a large number of students still kept abroad. I believe you know that it's very difficult to enter Japan now. There are some barriers for newcomers entering Japan nowadays because of the COVID situation. So therefore, we have many options for students kept abroad. And as for the first grade students, I can say that all of the mandatory courses are taught online nowadays. So therefore, you can attend the mandatory courses from your home country. All the Japanese lessons are also taught online. So you don't have to be in Japan as for now. Well, until you are able to come to Japan, you can take courses, take the number of credits you need by taking courses held online. And well, as for this, we also have a number of students in the second and third year abroad as well. And for them, we have, well, if the course is taught in person in Japan, then we sometimes we take videos of them, send it to the students abroad, or we have separate time slots for the students abroad, and we have Zoom sessions for them like that. Or well, some professors will just give the students some different assignments and just have some kind of, well, online discussion sessions every 2 weeks or so. And so therefore we have a number of measures and options so that the students who are still kept abroad are also able to take the courses and take the number of credits they need so that they can graduate this university in 4 years. So that's how we are managing this situation these days.
Okay. May I add one question from my side? does this mean that once the pandemic is over, all the classes will be held in person? Is that understanding
that
correct?
is the rule. Yes. When all of these entrance bans are lifted and everybody will be able to come to the country, then in that case, all the classes will be held in person, and you're supposed to be here in Japan. That's what I have to say. Thank you for that question.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Another question that we have, what kind of applied skills students can get while studying?
Applied skills. That's a good question. Well, what I can say is that, well, if you are good at Japanese, the language, then well, you can get a certificate to become a Japanese language teacher in Japanese schools. That's what I can tell you first. And plus, well, if you major in Japanese language teaching, you'll probably be able to teach Japanese abroad if there's no specific certificate in your home country. That's one thing. But for others, well, if you want to be a specialist in something, then we have to say that you go on to the graduate school. Without that, I believe you can't become a specialist, at least in Japan, by just graduating from the undergraduate program.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question, are there any exams I have to take to be accepted into this school? How can I apply?
Well, the exams are, well, if you want to enter the School of Japan Studies from the first year, the only exams you have to take is the English exams. Just as Ishida-san mentioned, IELTS, TOEFL, Cambridge, TOEIC. Well, take one of these. And if you get the score of above CEFR B2 level, so if it's TOEFL IBT, if you get over 72 points, then you cleared that part. And apart from that, all you have is we need your high school grades. And if you pass the paper screening, the second stage is an interview. So there's nothing else you have to take before applying.
Okay, thank you. We just received a question kind of related to that. Is there a certain requirement regarding high school studies? Minimum graduation score, tolerance of failed classes? How is it, the grades requirement?
Okay, what I can tell you is that to apply to the School of Japan Studies, there is no grade requirement. But if you want to receive the scholarship provided by the Ministry of Education, in that case, there is a grade requirement. The GPA should be over 2.3 out of 3. So, well, normally when you calculate your GPA, that's 4 is the full marks. But the Ministry of Education in Japan has a different way of calculating GPA. And so the full marks will be 3. And out of 3, you should have over 2.3 in your GPA. That's what you need to receive the scholarship provided by the Ministry of Education. But apart from that, just to apply for the School of Japan Studies, we don't have any requirements of GPA.
Okay,
that's what I can tell you. But I have to say that it's better to have better grades. That's for sure.
Okay. May I just add another question from my side again?
Yes.
What can the students do to prepare to get into the School of Japan Studies?
That's a good question. Well, that means, well, as I just mentioned, you have to submit your English scores. So you have to prepare for the English exams. And you should have good high school grades. Apart from that, it's the interview. For that, I can say that you should, well, if you want to come to Japan and study at the School of Japan Studies, as I mentioned, we do not require the applicants to know much about Japan. But at least you should show some kind of interest in the country, in the society, in the history, in the culture. So therefore, I recommend that you should read something about Japan, written in your native language or anything. If it's written by a scholar, then that's better. It will be easier to have a talk with our faculty members. during the interview. So therefore, I just recommend that you do some kind of research about Japan, and especially read something, not get information by YouTube. Reading is good because this is a university. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question. I've graduated from high school about 6 years ago and then started my career and have been working since. Is the gap on the academic career can be a problem for the school or for the immigration? Certain countries like USA, Canada doesn't really like it.
Well, as for Japan, there is no problem. I have to say that we have a great number of students coming from abroad in their late 20s, in their early 30s as well. And at the School of Japan Studies, we have students over 30, in their 30s. So there is no problem. There's no age limit. You don't have to care about that. The only age limit we have is for the scholarship provided by the Ministry of Education. The age limit is 25. So if it's 6 years after you graduated from high school, then I believe this will be the final chance for you to get the scholarship provided by the Ministry of Education. But apart from that, there's no age limit entering universities, coming to Japan, and so on. So you don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Let me add one point to Professor Haruna. If you're looking for a scholarship provided by private foundations, they do have some similar age limits. So as Professor Haruna was mentioning, to enter the university, there's no age limit, but for the financial support one, you may need to go into some details of the scholarship availabilities. Okay. Okay, I do believe that we have covered all the questions. Thank you very much for all the questions. It was wonderful questions. If you have any more questions, you can just type it into the question box. I have typed in some of the links that Professor Haruna mentioned, including the email address of the Global Admissions Office. So in case you come up with any questions after the session, you can just contact us anytime. Before we end, let me just share one information about I don't know how many of you will be interested in the third-year transfer, but we will be having the information session of the third-year transfer coming up. I hope you can see this now. Yes, this is the School of Japan Studies online information session for the third-year transfer, which will be taking place on March 1st. In Japan time, we will have 2 sessions, starting at 10 a.m. Japan time and 4 p.m. Japan time, which will be covering the same content. So if you're interested, if you already have some studied experience in the university, or maybe already graduated, but you're looking for another bachelor's degree, if you're interested, please join us for this session. This flyer is also available on the link that I have sent through the chat box as well. So if you're interested, please join us for these sessions as well. Okay. We will be covering the program itself more in details with what Professor Haruna has explained today. We will also go over the admissions information as well. So if you're interested, please join us for this session. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. If there's any other questions, you can just contact us or, okay. So if we don't have any questions coming in, I think we can round up this session. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you very much for Zainab and Hazal-san for giving us this opportunity and supporting us. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
To hearing you.
Yes, thank you very much for the great presentation, Ri and Nobuo. It was yet another great session with you, and it was very informative for the attendees. And also I would like to thank the participants in Turkish as well. Katıldığınız için teşekkür ederiz arkadaşlar. Umarız sizin için de faydalı bir webinar olmuştur. Tokyo University of Foreign Studies ile ilgili diğer sorularınız için chat kısmında paylaşılmış olan mail adreslerinden Ri ve Nobuo'ya ulaşabilirsiniz. Bir sonraki webinarlarımızda görüşmek üzere. Thank you very much again, Rian and Nobua. It was a pleasure to have you in IEFT Talks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.